Appreciate that. By the way, I appreciate that applause. Normally I don't get that applause until I'm done talking and the food comes out, but I do appreciate it nonetheless. Now, a little bit about tonight. Tonight we're going to have a good time. We're going to educate you and inform you a little bit. Hopefully you'll walk out of here knowing a little bit more about how to deal with this current economic situation, how to deal with your finances, and how to move forward in your financial life. Now, a little bit about a couple little housekeeping items before we get going. I would say that certainly if you got cell phones, we'd appreciate it if you'd shut those down, turn them off, turn them down, so we won't disturb our neighbors. And I would also appreciate it if you'd, well, the one thing I always like to mention is questions. If you've got questions, I would say the best way to handle questions is if you flip that white sheet over that I gave you that's got my family on it. Turn that over. On the back of that sheet is the perfect place to write questions, okay? Now, as we go along, something comes to your mind, write it on the back of the sheet. What I find is if I take a lot of questions in my seminar, in my meeting, then we tend to really go long. Maybe we might go an hour and a half. And plus I kind of lose my train of thought, and it's just easier if I take questions at the end. What I'll do is when I'm done talking, we're going to have dinner come out, and then while you're eating, I'll come around to each table individually. I'll be glad to answer any questions at that time. Does that work for everybody? Okay, good. Other housekeeping items. If you need to use the restroom, it's just kind of out this door to the front of the restaurant. Feel free to do that at any time. But the perfect time to do that is when I'm done in about an hour. Okay, and then we'll have a little break, and you'll be able to take care of that business then. But certainly don't let me stop you from taking care of that whenever you need to. That would be fine. Now, a little bit about this evening. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get going here. And our goal and our objective today is to educate you, to entertain you. I realize you have a lot of things you could be doing today. This beautiful spring evening, the weather's nice, and here you are in this meeting listening to me. So I appreciate you being here. And hopefully tonight you'll get something out of this. That's my goal. And you'll be able to walk away thinking, yeah, I'm glad I came to this. If it's not the information you hear, maybe it's the meal, because I know the meal will be good. There you go. Now, a little bit about our offices. We're located just over here on 7200 South and 900 East. Everybody familiar with that area? Okay. We've been there for about 4 years or so, and we really enjoy the location. There at our offices, we've got an elder law attorney available, as well as a living trust attorney. Full-time CPA on call, full advisory and financial services right there at the offices. We've also got insurance specialists of every type. We've got long-term care, home health insurance, life insurance, estate insurance. These are all things that we deal with our clients. Our goal is to be kind of a one-stop shop. So if you've got a need as someone that's in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and you can come to us and we can take care of all your estate planning needs, all your investment needs, your insurance needs, and everything right there in our offices. Now, anybody been on vacation recently? Right here, where have you been?
We've been on a cruise.
You went on a cruise? Where did you go?
The Caribbean.
Caribbean, nice. That's great. We went on a cruise once and we had a really good time. It was one of our most memorable vacations. Only been on one of them. But we really enjoyed it. Now, when you're going on that cruise, you probably did a little bit of planning for that cruise, right? Yeah, it takes some planning if you're going to have a successful vacation. What I find with me and my family is if I'm going to have a successful vacation, I have to do a lot of planning. In fact, what I do is I like to get online, I like to book my airfare, book my hotels, book all this stuff, and I also like to plan out exactly what we're going to do each day, because what I find is if I do that, it becomes a much more successful vacation. We have more fun. Now, why do you think most people spend more time planning their vacations than their financial futures?
More fun.
Yes, much more fun, isn't it? In fact, who wants to sit down and start figuring out how they're going to get through their retirement? That's no fun, is it? That's like no fun at all. But if you plan your vacation, you get to plan all this fun stuff you're going to do for the next week. And so it's just much more fun, isn't it? But do you think it's important to plan your finances? Absolutely. It's very important. In fact, I would submit to you, let me back up. Most vacations, how long were you on your cruise?
7 days.
7 days? Okay, 7 days. Most people, they go on a week, 2 weeks, and they come home, right? They have a beginning and then an end, right? Now, with your financial future, when do they begin? Well, they begun, right? They probably begun when you were a little kid and you made that first dollar, put that first dollar in your pocket. When do they end? Well,
Die.
So when you die. Do they end then even? Well, they end for you, certainly. But this could end up going on for like decades with your grandkids, with your children, your grandchildren, and maybe even your great-grandchildren. This legacy that you leave could end up going on for generations to come. So I would submit to you that if you can spend just a little bit of time, maybe, a couple of weeks planning your financial future, maybe the amount of time it takes you to plan one vacation, spend that time planning your finances, it will pay big dividends not only for you, but for those people, generations to come. Generations to come. Okay? Now, don't gamble with your finances. Does anybody feel like they've been gambling maybe a little bit more than they thought so as of late? Yeah. I mean, what's been going on? All sorts of stuff, isn't it? Crazy stuff. We've seen the economy literally kind of fall apart over the last 6 months, the last year. We've seen things just crumble, right? And it's been extremely difficult for a lot of people. In fact, I'll never forget, I met this fellow. This was the last, anybody remember the last downturn we had? It was about 2000, 2001, 2002, right? Remember those years? That was the 9/11, the internet bubble burst, and then we had a lot of the corporate scandal that seemed to start in the early 2000s, the Enron thing, the MCI WorldCom, and all that stuff kind of started back in the early 2000s. And I'll never forget, this fellow came into my office. He had been retired for 2 years. He retired in March of 2000, right when things were kind of starting to kind of crumble a bit. And when he retired with $600,000 in his account. Okay, it was a 401k. He rolled it over into some mutual funds and things like that. And when he met with me 2 years later, oh, by the way, before I get to that, he was taking $30,000 off of his IRA to live. So he had $600,000 there, taking $30,000 off. What percentage is that? 5%, right? 30,000 on 600, 5%. When I met with him 2 years later, guess how much was in his account? Any guesses out there? 200? Not quite 200. 400? A little less than 400. It actually was 300,000. He had lost 50% of his money during that 2-year downturn in the market. Now, if you've lost 50% of your money and you're taking 30,000 out, he now has $300,000 in his account, taking 30,000. So what percent is he taking now? You're right, 10%. He's taking 10% out instead of the 5%. So he has to earn 10% of that money to continue to take the 30,000. I told him, I said, you better hope the market comes back, number one. And number two, if it doesn't, you're going to run out of money eventually. Because the markets could continue, if the markets continue to fall and you're taking money out, it's kind of a double whammy. So don't gamble. The number one thing I try and work with all my clients is you can't gamble with your finances. You can't invest more aggressively than your time frame is. I mean, your age permits. If you're 50, 60, 70 years old and you're investing in mutual funds and things like that, and stocks, aggressive stocks, it's just not going to work out. Now, who all thinks that maybe things have changed a little bit lately? What have we seen happen over the last year? We've seen companies, mutual funds. I mean, we used to do a lot of mutual funds. Don't do a lot anymore. We're pretty much in guaranteed type products at this point. But what I've seen with people that own mutual funds, I've had people coming in my office. A good example is like the American funds. Anybody heard of American funds? Yeah, they're one of the biggest fund companies out there. Okay, so if you've got the American funds, they had a history of about a 20 to 25 year history. They've got one fund in particular that pretty much didn't lose money in 25 years. Well, that fund in particular that I'm thinking of, during the year 2008, guess how much that fund was down? Yeah, about 40%. 40% in that one year, after having a 25-year history of not losing money. So has the game changed? It absolutely has changed, and we've got to adjust our thinking. Otherwise, it's just not going to work for us. Going forward, I can't have my clients losing 40%, 50%, and that's why a few years ago I changed my tune, and I said we've got to have some sort of guarantee on this money. We can't afford to not know what's going to happen during our retirement years. If you're going on a cruise, you want to know you're going to get from point A to point B and be done, right? Same thing with your finances. You want to know that if I follow this path, if I follow this plan, I'm going to get from point A to point B safely. Okay? Don't gamble. At your age, that's the number one thing we try and teach, is we can't afford to be too aggressive.